G'day there legends, I've got a real treat for you today. With the launch of the 30th anniversary edition and the return of Galahorn into Destiny 2, many people have forgotten about the Deepstone Crypt exotic rocket launcher known as Eyes of Tomorrow. Well, I'm here today to bring Eyes back into the spotlight by using Top Tree Solar Titan with Path of the Burning Steps. And with the right combination of Charged with Light and Elemental Well mods, we can take the impressive base damage of this weapon and elevate it by a whopping 192%. More about that later. Now, before we get into the build, make sure to click the subscribe button and turn on post notifications so that you always know when a new video goes live. Also, if you find this video helpful, make sure to chuck a like as it really helps me out. Also, I stream every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday and Sunday from approximately 5 PM Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time, doing what you see here and more. I might even be able to get you your own Eyes of Tomorrow. I'll throw the link to the Twitch in the description down below. Now, for those of you that don't have amazing RNG, I'll quickly run over the perks found on Eyes of Tomorrow. It's a solar rocket launcher and the intrinsic trait reads as follows: Eyes on all. This weapon is capable of tracking and firing at multiple targets simultaneously. The exotic perk is called Adaptive Ordnance, which states killing 4 or more combatants in a single volley increases the damage of the next volley. This is a very healthy 43% damage bonus to the next volley once activated. You'll notice that Adaptive Ordnance is displayed in the bottom left side of the hub when active. This will last until you die or you shoot the shot. Swapping weapons will not get rid of the buff. The first set of mods we're going to be using is Elemental Wells. I'm taking advantage of Elemental Ordnance, which states defeating a combatant with a grenade spawns an Elemental Well that matches your subclass energy type. This mod has no affinity tied to it and can be placed on armor of any energy type. I put this on my helmet, but feel free to put it anywhere that works well for you. The next mod you'll want to be running is Font of Might. This mod states that picking up an Elemental Well that matches your subclass energy type grants a temporary bonus to weapon damage of that same elemental type. This grants 25% damage buff for 10 seconds for weapons matching your subclass. The great thing about Font of Might is that it stacks with other damage buffs. It's a very easy way to gain a 25% damage buff for a decent amount of time. Once again, this mod has no affinity and can be placed on any armor piece. The next mod I'm running is Bountiful Wells, which states Elemental Well mods that cause you to spawn Elemental Wells can now stack, spawning additional wells for each copy of the mod you have equipped, which you can apply to solar armor. As we are running 1 copy of Elemental Ordnance, this will grant us 2 Elemental Wells. I found this to work well as the passive benefit of Elemental Wells is to grant a slight amount of energy to all of my abilities, which is really nice. Elemental Time Dilation could also be used to extend the duration of Font of Might by 3 seconds, which is a stasis Elemental Well mod. However, I found it was easier to have more uptime on Font of Might running Bountiful Wells. Honestly, play around with it and find what works best for you. As stated, we're going to be running Top Tree Hammers and taking advantage of a Hammer Strike, which applies a 30% debuff lasting 10 seconds to a combatant once activated. We'll also be using the Titan exotic boots known as Path of the Burning Steps. For those of you who aren't familiar with the exotic perk, it reads as follows: Solar Final Blows periodically grant you an escalating damage bonus. You are harder to slow or freeze with stasis, and when you break out, you take no damage from doing so, creating a burst of solar energy around yourself. This is a stacking damage bonus. At 1 stack, all weapon damage is increased by 20%, 2 stacks is 25%, 3 and 4 stacks provide equal damage bonus at 35%. To consistently proc Firewalker, I was using this Borrowed Time SMG with Demolitionist. I would highly recommend using a primary energy weapon with Demolitionist, as it really helps spawning those solar elemental wells. For kinetic weapon, it doesn't really matter too much, however, I would recommend something for longer ranges. I was using this Praetor's Revenge with Firefly, as enemies killed by the Firefly explosion can activate or extend the duration of Firewalker. A kinetic weapon with Osmosis would also work well, as after activating your grenade, it would essentially become a solar weapon, which would feed right back into the Path of Burning Steps. Firewalker and Hammer Strike together are providing a 65% damage increase, which is fine. But as power crazy Guardians, we like to push the limits just a little bit. Next, we'll be using the Charged with Light mod, Argent Ordnance. which provides a bonus to rocket launcher damage and reload speed. At 1 copy, the damage bonus is 20%, 2 copies is 25%, and 3 copies maxes out the damage bonus at 35%. To become charged with light, I'm running Elemental Charge, which states, become charged with light by picking up an elemental well. If the elemental well's element type matches your subclass element, you gain 2 stacks of charge with light. This damage buff doesn't stack with Firewalker, however it allows for a lot more ease of use with Eyes of Tomorrow, and it allows primary weapon to have a healthy damage buff for most of the time, which aids in ad clear. Also, because our primary weapon is solar, it also is dipping into Font of Might. Can you see the synergy start to come together here? Now, into the numbers. When you start to take everything into account here, the numbers start to get pretty crazy. First off, we have Adaptive Ordnance, which increases the damage by 43%. Then we have the 35% buff offered by either Argent Ordnance or Path of the Burning Steps, combined with the 25% from Font of Might. Now, throw in Hammer Strike for a 30% debuff. So, to summarize, the total buff / debuff multiplier is as follows: 1.2, 1.43, 1.25, and 1.3, equaling 2.78 base damage. So roughly 180% increase in damage. However, the damage numbers that I was getting was around 193% damage, which is a tad higher than what you're seeing calculated. But you have to remember this is Destiny, and sometimes the rounding of numbers can be just a little bit funky. Look, I will say it takes a little work to get to the end result with this build, and I would say the only major drawback is activating Adaptive Ordnance, as essentially you're burning 1 rocket to gain the increased damage. So rocking 2 rocket scavenger perks really help. I took this into altars and I was struggling to find yellow bars that I couldn't one-shot. The combination of mods, buffs going on here is absolutely insane. Gambit, it also performed really well. Admittedly, it's very dependent on heavy ammo drops. Bonus to that is that Eyes of Tomorrow is without a doubt the best invading weapon in the game, 100% not broken. I also was playing with this in some strikes where it was putting in big work. I will say that the blueberries will 100% kill the combatants that you need to proc Adaptive Ordnance, so get ready for that. I love this build. It's got a lot of moving parts and a lot of synergy that I find absolutely fantastic. So if you're looking for something a little different that produces a whole lot of bang, give this a try. This is all possible solo too. Sound off in the comments with some improvements. I'm always looking for ways to make my build better.